The shadows of the past and the weight of silence represent a storm threatening the monarchy at the heart of the oldest institution. In a place where every gesture is measured and every word is calculated, a crisis rarely erupts with a big bang. It often starts quietly, like an almost invisible crack that, over time, threatens to shatter the entire structure. This seems to be how the latest controversy surrounding the British royal family unfolded, a story fueled by rumors, controversial statements, and a persistent public fascination with the secrets of power. It all began with the claims of a former British journalist who stated that he possessed documentary evidence of an alleged relationship between Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew that dated back more than 2 decades. Within hours, interview clips and unverified commentary spread across social media and digital outlets, generating a wave of speculation that revived old scandals and wounds that the monarchy had not yet fully healed. The impact was not limited to the media realm. According to various reports, an urgent and secret meeting was held at Buckingham Palace in London. This was not just a matter of managing uncomfortable headlines, but rather assessing the potential reach of a narrative that, if accepted, could affect individuals and the institution as a whole. In situations like this, the problem is not just the truth of the facts, but also the speed at which a story can turn into collective belief. The historical context adds complexity. In the early 2000s, Prince Andrew had a busy international schedule, mingling among important figures. At the same time, Meghan Markle was a rising young actress in Los Angeles, building a career in a completely different environment. The idea that their paths might have crossed then remains in the realm of speculation for now. However, in the digital age, even the most fragile hypotheses can appear solid if repeated often enough. Meanwhile, the public's reaction, or rather, the lack of it, has been interpreted in various ways. Institutional silence, a traditional tool of the monarchy, can serve to avoid spreading rumors, but it can also give space for others to define the narrative. This ambiguity becomes a double-edged sword, protecting dignity or fueling suspicion. Across the Atlantic in California, the strategy seemed equally cautious. Without a direct statement or a firm denial, the response, once again, was silence. This decision reflects a deep understanding of today's media landscape, where every word can be reinterpreted, taken out of context, or used as fuel for new theories. Yet, this also carries risks. Without an official version, the information vacuum tends to be filled with speculation. Social media has played a key role in amplifying this case. Forums, threads, and posts have analyzed old images, guest lists, and partial timelines, trying to construct a coherent narrative from disconnected fragments. This phenomenon is not new but is becoming increasingly influential. The constant repetition of an idea can give the impression of legitimacy, even when there is no verifiable evidence. In this scenario, the main question is no longer just whether the allegations are true or false. The real challenge lies in how to manage the impact of uncertainty for a monarchy whose stability depends heavily on public trust. Every crisis of this kind is a potential threat, not because it always reveals new facts, but because it erodes the perception of transparency and control. Inside the palace walls, the response was likely meticulously designed, gathering information, analyzing sources, and risk assessment. There was no room for impulsive reactions. The priority was to distinguish between noise and evidence, between speculation and reality. But even this strategy had its limits. In the public realm, time is essential. The longer the uncertainty persists, the harder it is to reverse established perceptions. A high-ranking security advisor, known for his low profile and surgical precision, was assigned this task. The mission seemed simple on the surface: trace the origins of the recent allegations, examine the available evidence, and determine if there was any real basis behind the growing wave of speculation. However, in an environment where every detail can have institutional implications, nothing is truly simple. Forgotten files from the early 2000s were reopened, guest lists for exclusive events were matched with travel records, and old photos, digital correspondence, and printed documents were analyzed with extreme care. During the initial phase, the findings offered cautious reassurance. The allegations seemed largely based on repeated rumors, vague memories, and indirect reports amplified over time. There was no convincing evidence, no solid documents, nothing that could withstand rigorous legal scrutiny. For a moment, it seemed the storm might subside before reaching its peak. But the modern world does not operate on official investigation timelines. Before the palace could formulate a response, social media took over the narrative. A blurry, low-quality image with the characteristic yellowish tint of early 2000s digital cameras began to circulate. The image showed a luxury yacht anchored under the Mediterranean sun. Laughter frozen in time, sparkling champagne glasses, and at its center, a female figure whose appearance closely resembled Meghan Markle. Beside her was Prince Andrew. The detail that ignited the controversy was not just their presence together but the apparent closeness between them, a gesture caught in an ambiguous moment, but enough to trigger various interpretations. Within hours, the image went viral. Digital platforms, blogs, analysis programs, and sensationalist headlines relentlessly replicated the photo. What was once just fringe rumors turned into tangible confirmation for many. Public opinion shifted with incredible speed. Tabloid media ramped up their coverage. Visual analysis experts were called in, and they began to dissect every pixel of the image: facial structure, shadows, lighting consistency, and posture. Some pointed out similarities, others urged caution. Yet, the debate shifted from verifiable facts to a matter of perception, and in the digital age, perception can be more powerful than evidence. Markle's defenders argued that the image showed clear signs of manipulation: lighting inconsistencies, pixel distortion, and mismatched shadows. But in the court of public opinion, certainty, even when groundless, often overrides reasonable doubt. Soon, the question was no longer whether the image was real. The conversation evolved into something more unsettling: what else might the palace be hiding? The palace found itself in a dangerous but familiar position, reacting to a narrative they did not create. While internal investigators continued their work with rigor and patience, a parallel court had formed outside those walls, a court where speculation outweighed official silence. The situation became increasingly volatile because of the context. Trust in institutions was already weakening, and past controversies were fresh in collective memory. The slightest hint of connection, even without proof, had the power to reopen old wounds. Was the photo real? Had it been manipulated? Was it a case of mistaken identity, or was it part of a more planned strategy? As analysts debated and allegations intensified, all eyes turned to the key figure, Meghan Markle. Her silence until then only added to the uncertainty because, in a crisis like this, silence is not always neutral. Sometimes it is interpreted as a strategy or a signal. Far from the media frenzy, in the privacy of her California residence, tension was rising for Markle. For her, this was not just another rumor. It was a direct attack on her credibility and the narrative she had carefully built over the years. Every decision now carried strategic weight. Speaking too fast could amplify the controversy. Staying silent for too long could be interpreted as a tacit admission. This is where the central question became urgent: who stands to lose the most? For the monarchy, the risk was institutional. Its stability relies on public perception. For Markle, the risk was personal and reputational. Her projects and standing depended on public trust. With a decisive movement, she picked up her phone. Within minutes, the most prestigious law firms in London and New York were supporting her. For Meghan Markle, this was not just a media crisis, it was a war for her credibility. While photo analysis experts debated the viral image, the damage had been done. Meghan understood the nature of the attack, a persistent plan designed to discredit not just her image but her entire career. Her response was equally strategic. Cease and desist letters backed by elite law firms began to circulate. When she finally appeared before the camera, her gaze was direct and firm. She stated without hesitation that the photo was a forgery, a result of malicious manipulation. However, even this firm stance failed to fully silence the stir. Beside her, Prince Harry presented a different image. During charity events, he smiled at photographers, but his expression seemed fragile. The reappearance of Prince Andrew's name in public debate revived old shadows. Global reactions were divided. Some saw Meghan as a symbol of resistance against traditional structures, while others remained suspicious, fueled by the adage, "Where there is smoke, there is fire." In the quiet corridors of Buckingham Palace, King Charles III quietly ordered an internal investigation. The first significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A London tabloid, guided by a veteran journalist, traced advertisement archives from the early 2000s. Finally, a key piece emerged. The woman in the controversial photo was not Meghan Markle. Most likely, it was a semi-professional Canadian model who bore a striking physical resemblance. Her appearance in luxury yacht advertisements during the same period explained the confusion. This revelation shook the press, and for a moment, the atmosphere seemed calm. In the United States, the Sussexes breathed a sigh of relief. They had won an important battle. But in the palace, the feeling was different. Charles III held the newspaper, his expression unwavering. The clearer picture did not remove all his doubts. The allegations, though weakened, continued to cast a shadow. The recent history of the British monarchy shows that no role is truly untouchable when the survival of the institution is at stake. The precedent of Prince Andrew showed that even the most prominent figures can be sidelined to protect the integrity of the crown. This episode revealed the uncomfortable reality, the fragility of a public image in an age where every gesture is analyzed and every silence interpreted. Even without convincing evidence, the shadow of controversy can take root in collective memory. As this chapter ends, the palace does not celebrate. It knows that even if some truths remain hidden, the consequences of uncertainty may continue indefinitely. In this new scenario where perception rivals reality, the monarchy faces an unprecedented challenge: maintaining relevance without losing its essence. The storm may have passed, but its echoes continue to resound. And within those echoes, a fundamental question remains: can an institution built on centuries of tradition adapt enough to survive in a world demanding immediate transparency?